We're here today at South by Southwest in the exhibit hall at the NASA booth, and I'm ready to answer your questions about NASA astronauts, human spaceflight, and Orion, this new vehicle that NASA is building to go beyond low Earth orbit into deep space. We're ready to take your questions, so ask whatever you need on Facebook Live.
Wonderful. First question, what's Orion?
Orion is, here's a picture of Orion right here. So Orion is a spacecraft that NASA is building right now. It's an incredibly exciting time for us. And Orion is a spacecraft that is going to take us beyond low Earth orbit. So beyond low Earth orbit is where the space station is right now, orbiting our planet every 90 minutes. But if we want to go even further than that, if we want to go back to the moon, eventually to get to Mars, it'll be the Orion spacecraft and NASA's Space Launch System that gets us there. The Space Launch System is the largest rocket ever built by NASA, ever built by anyone really, even bigger than the Saturn V rocket, which brought astronauts to the moon.
What other spacecrafts are there?
So right now it's a pretty exciting time to be an astronaut because there are many spacecrafts out there that I might have the opportunity to fly on. First of all, we've had a continuous presence on the International Space Station with all of our partners, the Russian Space Agency, the European Space Agency, the Canadian Space Agency, and the Japanese Space Agency. We've had this continuous presence for over 17 years with humans up there. Right now we have a crew of 6 people, 2 American astronauts, a French astronaut, and 3 Russian cosmonauts. And we launch regularly to the space station with the Russian Space Agency on the Soyuz rocket. Of course, earlier we were launching with the Space Shuttle as well. Since the Space Shuttle retired in 2011, we're launching on the Soyuz pretty much exclusively right now. But another exciting fact, SpaceX and Boeing are building new vehicles right now so that we can launch from the US again. In the next few years, those programs should be ready and we'll be launching from the US to get to the space station. And then, as I just mentioned, we have Orion as well.
Wonderful. This question comes from Facebook user Montana, who asked, Orion has a strong resemblance to the Apollo capsule. What are some of the major differences and improvements with Apollo?
So Orion, you're right, does have a very similar, this kind of iconic, very robust spacecraft design. And I think really that's just the engineering solution to have something that's reliable, robust, and appropriate for both launch and then re-entry. So this is kind of the solution that most people have come up with. The Space Shuttle was pretty unique in that it was this spacecraft that then came back in and landed as an airplane. But the Space Shuttle was really more of an exception as compared to these other spacecraft. Orion is quite a bit larger than the Apollo spacecraft. It's being designed right now for a crew of 4, but it's even bigger than you would think just to accommodate for another person, because if we're going to stay in this spacecraft for a really long journey, for example 6 months all the way to Mars, we also need to have all the equipment that we'll need. We need to have exercise equipment so that we can stay healthy and keep our muscle and bone active and maintained. We need to have all of the supplies that we'll need, all the food. We need protection from the space elements. So everything needs to fit inside the spacecraft. So probably size is one of the biggest differences with the Orion.
Speaking of size, Facebook user Christopher is asking, how many crew members is Orion going to hold?
Right now, we are designing Orion to hold 4 crew members. I believe it's capable of carrying in the future 5 or even 6, but right now the current plan is for 4 astronauts.
Wonderful. This next question comes from Sam, who asks, what are the initial plans for testing Orion?
So the Orion capsule has been tested once already, so without people. So it's gone into space, successfully re-entered, everything went well with that. In 2018, the plan is to test both Orion and the Space Launch System together, again without a crew. But in the early 2020s, we will test Orion with a crew of astronauts, and that's going to be an incredibly exciting mission where we'll go all the way to the moon, even 40,000 miles further than the Apollo astronauts went. So we'll go to about, I think, a total of 275,000 miles away from here. We'll go in orbit around the moon and then come back here. And that will be a 3-week mission. That will give us a lot of the data that we need to go even further for the future missions.
Wonderful. Catherine's asking, what does an individual need to become an astronaut?
Great question. So the cool thing about working in our office is that there is a lot of diversity. So for example, my background is a scientist. I used to do experiments with animals in extreme environments, so deep diving animals like penguins and seals, high altitude birds, the geese that migrate over the Himalayas. So I was really interested in extreme physiology. Just an example as me as a biologist, but the core that everybody needs is a degree in a STEM field. So any science, technology, engineering, math, then you need 3 years of experience. That can be substituted 4 by an advanced degree as well. So our office is made up of scientists of all kinds, physicists, chemists, even biologists like me, medical doctors, engineers of all types, and then of course the old school, the original astronauts were all these military test pilots, and we have a lot of those as well. We have military flight test engineers, you name it, anything in the STEM field is a great option toward becoming an astronaut. Another thing that you really need is a lot of experience in terms of operational experience. So things that involve active, sort of hands-on type activities like flying an airplane or scuba diving or demonstrating some kind of mechanical aptitude. A lot of our job on the International Space Station right now is fixing things. If the toilet breaks, I need to be able to fix it. I'm going to do the science, but I'm still going to do the repair work and the maintenance on the electrical system. I'm going to have to go for a spacewalk, so we really need to be diverse and well-rounded. These are really important attributes as an astronaut. And another great attribute is being a team player. If you think about a long-duration space mission, I like to think about it in terms of who would you want to bring on a camping trip with you? Somebody that can take care of themselves, take care of their gear, take good care and contribute to the team overall. So somebody that's pleasant to be with and fun to be around. I mean, who wants to be in space for 6 months with someone that's not really that pleasant? So those are really the keys, I think, that are really exhibited in our office right now among all of the astronauts.
Wonderful. Jamie here asks, what are your thoughts on the first SLS mission being a crew mission?
Well, I think that all of that is still to be determined. Right now, originally the design was that the first test with the Space Launch System and Orion together would be without crew, since it would be the first time that those systems were tested together that was the natural progression as the program was designed. So we'll see what happens. I know that if we do decide to turn it into a crewed mission, we will have all of the testing and experience and data on the ground to make sure that we know how to do that safely. So we'll stay tuned and see which direction it follows.
Josh here is asking, will the Orion spacecraft have more room to move around in it? Is it similar to like an orbiter?
It's actually pretty small. There's not going to be a lot of free space in there. So one of the big challenges that a lot of really smart people at NASA are trying to figure out right now is how to use that space effectively. What do we do if we need to shield ourselves from radiation? What do we do? How do we exercise and offset that with everything else that we need to do during the mission? So the Orion capsule doesn't have a huge amount of room, but eventually it would have to have some kind of habitation module like other spacecraft have as well. So you would have a little bit more room than just the capsule itself when we're finally talking about getting all the way to Mars. But it's a great question for all of you out there to start thinking about, because we need help at NASA figuring out how to utilize the space effectively. For example, one of the key things we're doing right now is developing a really small exercise device. Right now, our astronauts on the International Space Station are sometimes coming back with even more muscle mass than when they left. They're really able to maintain their muscle mass and their bone density because we have this incredible exercise equipment on board. It takes up a lot of space, though, in the space station. No problem when we have this really big facility like the space station, but on a small spacecraft like this one, we need something that's equally as effective, but much, much smaller. So it's a difficult challenge, and it's one that we're working on right now at NASA.
Wonderful. 2 questions here. Alan asks, what is the risk of radiation to the people that would go? And Angela's asking, is Orion designed to resist radiation?
Yeah, that is a great question, and that's probably one of the biggest challenges that we're still working on. Of course, when you're in space and when you are outside of the closer protection to the Earth environment, there is more radiation that we're receiving regularly. In order to get us all the way to Mars and back safely, we need to shield ourselves. And not even just us, we also need to shield our equipment, our computers, our cameras, everything that we need is also affected by that radiation. So yes, there is a level of shielding inherent already in the Orion spacecraft. We also have other plans in place. So for example, if you have a solar flare and a higher level of radiation, you can use different things that might not have originally been for that purpose, like water or food or other items to shield yourself from that radiation. But this is really a hot topic, so if you have any more insight into this, if you have something that can help us solve this problem, we'd love to hear your ideas. I know that if I'm going to eventually go to Mars one day, I want to make sure that I come back safely, so help us.
Great. Yuriko here is asking, are astronauts actively involved in the design of a mission, or is it mission planners prescribing what the mission should look like in terms of objectives and activities?
Yeah, as astronauts, a lot of times we are the people that we're the image, that people really think about when they think of space travel, but we're just the lucky ones that actually get to go to space. It is such an extraordinary thing to be part of this amazing NASA team. There are thousands of scientists and engineers and personnel on the ground that are doing everything for us. They're the ones doing all the hard work, training us, building the systems for us, making sure that we can go and come back safely. So we do, as astronauts, we do sit on different boards and panels and provide some input from the astronaut perspective. But the mission architecture overall kind of comes from a little bit higher within the NASA administration, and of course the direction that the overall government and Congress and our new administration sets for us.
Wonderful here. Just time for a couple more questions. What is the volume of the Orion module after it's equipped? Do we know that number?
I'm not sure. There are some really smart Orion folks here, so maybe we can get someone to answer that question for us, and then we'll get back to you.
All right. Next question here comes from Tony, who asked, how does it feel to be a pioneer of today's space missions that shape tomorrow?
It's incredibly exciting. I mean, for me, I wanted to be an astronaut since the time I was 5 years old, so sometimes it's kind of hard to believe that it's actually happened. And eventually I'll get to fulfill this dream of looking down on the Earth, on this fragile blue ball, everything we've ever known, every place we've ever been. And that, to me, is just an extraordinary opportunity. Exploration has always been a driving force in my life, whether it is diving in the oceans or venturing to the Antarctic, and really having that spirit of exploration, which I really think is an inherent and integral part of us as a human species. So it's an extraordinary feeling, and I hope that I can share it with everybody else that isn't quite as fortunate to have that. I think we're going to wrap things up now. We're off to another event, but if you're at South by Southwest, come by the exhibit hall, check out what NASA has here. Thanks for following along, and thanks for your great questions.